Good evening, good evening. It's the 9th of October in the evening in the United Kingdom. And I'm just going to show you a few things today to indicate that the West, in my opinion, is completely on the wrong side of things.
Що повинно робити НАТО? Унеможливлювати застосування Росією ядерної зброї. Але, що важливо, я ще раз звертаюсь до міжнародної спільноти. Як це було до 24-го? Превентивні удари, щоб вони знали, що з ними буде, якщо вони застосують. А не навпаки, чекати ядерних ударів Росію, щоб потім сказати, ах ти так, ну ось тримай від нас. Переглянути застосування свого тиску. Ось я вважаю, що повинна робити НАТО. Переглянути порядок застосування.
Now that, of course, was President Zelensky of Ukraine a couple of days ago, talking to the Lowy Institute. I think that's in America, or it could be Australia. I'm not sure. But he's talking to the Lowy Institute and basically telling them NATO should do a preemptive nuclear strike on Russia. This is the standard line that is coming out of many areas. It came out from, you could say it came out from Liz Truss, my Prime Minister, when she basically said, yes, I would press the red button and be preemptive. If we needed to do it, I would do it. And there's lots of stuff coming out from Joe Biden at the moment, basically saying that Putin said that he was prepared to use nuclear weapons in his speech about a week ago. That's not true. If you read the full text of Putin's speech, there's nothing there about him saying anything at all about using nuclear weapons, especially not preemptive nuclear strikes to bring the war to an end and obliterate hundreds of thousands of people. On the contrary, Russia and Putin have stayed the course with their principles that they said right at the beginning, which was as much as possible to protect civilian lives, because they do not believe, for some strange reason, I don't know why, they don't believe that most Ukrainians are Russophobic. And I don't get that, because all I see is Russophobia. Here is an example of how the media plays the game. This is a very, very experienced BBC news reporter. His name is Jeremy Bowen. And he's in this picture reporting bravely on the 7th of March, so it is quite a few months ago, reporting bravely from Ukraine as heavy shelling goes on around him. And it looks like he's hunkering down and he's under fire. And this is the picture that's inside. A wider picture, the uncropped picture. You might see something in the background. A lady wandering back from the shops with her bag, in a bobble hat and a pink sweater, staring at him going, what the hell are you doing? If you look carefully just behind her, there's a man walking away wearing a pair of blue jeans. This is the type of propaganda that we are being fed here in the West. Now, this is a response that Alina Mikhailova, with a nice big tick next to her name, from Kiev's City Council, she responded to Elon Musk. Elon Musk had previously done a tweet basically explaining, here's my plan for peace in Ukraine. I mean, it was sort of like the Minsk agreements. So it's sort of now been called the Musk agreement. And essentially, Crimea is lost. Crimea is Russian. But in those 4 areas where there have been referendums in the last week or 2 weeks, in the south and the east of Ukraine, the UN should undertake independent referendums there. And if Russia lose, then Russia leave. And pretty much Musk got a right load of grief from people. Alina Mikhailova says, I'm a deputy of Kyiv City Council and an officer. I'm verified by Twitter as yourself, and I testify that those words of yours are absurd and speaks of your narrow-mindedness, dullness, and some serious gaps in history. But for now, it looks like you're full of Russian shit. She wrote that on the 3rd of October 2022. Unfortunately for Alina Mikhailova, somebody called Ewan McKenna then started looking through her Twitter. Is it common for deputies of Kyiv City Council to proudly take photos of themselves wearing the symbols that celebrate Hitler's elite guards? She's wearing a Waffen SS t-shirt and proudly, sexily flaunting herself on Twitter with a lovely selfie. Waffen SS. No Nazis in Ukraine. There aren't any. No Nazis in Ukraine. Deputy of Kyiv City Council. Little bit of shade. I too am verified by Twitter. There's a serious problem around fascism stroke Nazism in Ukraine. And a lot of people go, yeah, but nobody voted for the Nazis. They didn't need to. Every single political party in Ukraine from the Western side is the same. They've all been brought up with the same Nazi stroke fascist rhetoric. It's their foundation, it's their culture, it's their teaching, it's their indoctrination. That is a standard of the bottom line, the foundations for Ukraine. And the various political parties merely play on other aspects to try and get people to vote for them, because everybody that you vote for is of the same ilk in Ukraine. And that is seen very clearly. I mean, one thing I haven't mentioned before, back in 2014, at the Maidan coup. The Maidan coup happened, and I can't remember his name, Lukashenko or whatever his name was, that got kicked out as president. He had been democratically elected. Yeah, he might have been a corrupt git, but they're all corrupt gits, all of them. But he was Russian-leaning, and he'd been playing since 2010. He'd been playing the European side against the Russian side, and he eventually chose at the end of 2013 that he would go with Russia. And a lot of the people from the West didn't like that. So United States of America, Britain, the EU, and the Western Ukrainians organised a coup, took over, kicked him out, and then 6 months later, after February, around about October, they had their next set of elections. They put in a temporary government for 6 months, but then they had a set of elections. The people from the Donbass areas had no voting rights. Their democratic and human rights had been removed. They guaranteed that there would be no Russian-leaning politicians elected. And if there were any Russian-leaning ones from, say, Kherson or Kharkiv or Zaporozhye, they've got absolutely no chance of being part of the government. They would end up being the opposition, and they could be dealt with however they wished, which is exactly what has happened. ever since then, they've not had voting rights. And they have now just had the chance to vote. And they voted to leave, which was exactly what Zelensky said. Zelensky said, if you don't like it here, go to Russia. So they did, with their land.
Короче, я для себя даю признание страны, что Латвия стала неонацистской ультрастраной фашизма. Это недопустимо, но это факт. Это просто полный пиздец, что творится в Латвии. 33 года прожил, мне казалось, что Латвия это спокойная, мирная страна, но нет. Оказывается, это ультранеонацистская страна. Я уже не говорю, что будет охота теперь чмырить, и гнобить и унижать латышей и русофобов. Но это само собой понятно, что теперь начнется охота на них. И подожгут, скорее всего, технику, которая снесла этот памятник. И теперь уж тем более мы ждем Россию в гости в Латвии. Но вот так вот наших прадедов, наших предков память взяли, снесли и в мусорные контейнеры выкинули части памятника. Это просто пиздец. Кровью обливается сердце, стыд. Вчерашний день стал похоронами Латвии, к сожалению. Мне похуй на дрожь без полиции, похуй на полицию, мне абсолютно посрать. Для меня как была Варда Бривиби, так и есть, но это день скорби Латвии, демократии, свободы слова, вчерашний день.
This was from today or yesterday. This is a guy from Latvia who's basically had all of his patriotism sucked out of him. He is Latvian. I don't know whether he's got Russian ethnicity, but he's not got freedom of speech, even though he says he will use his own. He's probably prepared to go to jail and be treated as a traitor for that. The same thing is happening in Estonia and in Lithuania. Poland wishes to do the same as well. The Russophobia that is going on is pretty horrific. And it's interesting, what is Russophobia? Because Russia is full of people of many, many creeds. Take Chechnya as an example. It's pretty much Muslim. So if you're Russophobic in this way, are you also Islamophobic? Russia is full of Eastern Orthodox Christians. So if you're Russophobic as a state, are you also Christian phobic? There are loads of Jews there in Russia. Are you an anti-Semite because of Russophobia? It's really strange. The EU, I'm not just talking about the EU, the UK is just as rabid with the hate of Russia and just the desire for them to die. And these ideas that are coming out from all of these states across the EU, von der Leyen and Scholz are key to all of these. They're promoting them. Baerbock, Habeck. And these ideas that are coming out from these people are completely against the founding treaty of the EU, which is about each individual has human rights. You cannot dehumanize people. You cannot, for things that they are unable to actually do anything about, like their nationality, like the colour of their skin, like whether they've got a disability, like their religion, their race, all these things, you can't do anything about it. And yet it's perfectly all right to be Russophobic, to hate with all your heart. That is liberal democracy. This guy is basically very, very concerned for his country, Latvia. In Estonia, there are freedom of speech and human rights activists that are in jail and have been in jail since 5 years ago. They haven't even been told what their sentence actually is. They haven't been told what they've been convicted of, and they're not allowed any visitors. It is horrific what is going on in the EU. And unfortunately, I think the UK is going down the same way. I'm not mentioning anything about the USA. That's just a bunch of nutters. I mean, it really is. Very dangerous, very, very dangerous nutters who wish for the extinction of Russia and all Russians, and if they could, all Slavs. Here's an interesting one. This is Zaluzhny. He is Zelensky's right-hand man, the minister of his Department of Defense, or he's his chief defense guy, politician. And this is a photo that has just come out from Ukraine. And there he is, the big guy himself, Zaluzhny, in his camo, carrying a helmet in his left hand and a gun in his right. And if they blow up the picture as they did here, you'll see he's wearing a bracelet with a swastika on it. But there are no Nazis in Ukraine, and Nazism is not part of Ukraine. Fascism is not part of Ukraine. But here is a symbol of it. Just like we saw with the lady, Mikhailova, whatever her name was, with the Waffen SS t-shirt on, who is a deputy, an official from Kiev City Council. Just like we see with the Azov battalions, with their Wolfsangel insignia. As I said, this is not about, only 2% of people voted for Nazi politics and Nazi politicians and Nazi parties in Ukraine at the last elections. Yeah, that's because they're all like that. That's their foundation. It's how they've been taught, this Russophobia. And I'll explain later on why I put this hate and dehumanization as Nazism, because that's what it is. Nazism, the foundation of Nazism is to dehumanize the adversary. The people you want to get rid of, you dehumanize them, whether they are Slavs, gypsies, disabled, coloured, whatever religion, Jewish, or whether they're a nationality. Now let's get back to Britain. Here's the Daily Mail online. Massive explosion destroys the only bridge between Russia and Crimea. This is the Kerch Bridge. Happy birthday, Vlad. It happened on his birthday, 8th of October. It was a terrorist attack, at which at least 3 innocent civilians died. Now, there's a lot of talk about it was this lorry that had the stuff in it, but it actually looks like this was explosives put underneath, possibly by divers or marines, because of the way that the explosion came out. There are videos of it. It could have been the truck, but if not, then the truck driver was another innocent victim. But we know that there are at least 3 innocent civilians dead. The Daily Mail online glorifies it. It's a terrorist attack on a civilian infrastructure. You could say it's also a military infrastructure and it's a legitimate target because they're carrying stuff for the people of Crimea, of which some of the people of Crimea are troops. Okay, I can accept that. But glorification of this when innocent civilians have died just shows the position that the Daily Mail and British newspapers come from. Here's another example of it. This is the Daily Mail glorifying war crimes. We're hunting them down and shooting them like pigs. Ian Birrell for the Daily Mail reported on the 5th of October 2022. And it goes into an article about how the Ukrainians are taking brutal revenge on the collaborators who have betrayed their neighbours and their country to the Russians. Therefore they must die. The whole thing in the Daily Mail was a glorification of hunting people down, civilians, and shooting them like pigs. A guy here in a blue top, a compere, probably doing weddings and various, a toastmaster blown up in his car, a chicken farm guard. He continued working at a chicken farm. He is now in prison. A picture of a lady here with a tiara on, a sausage seller. She's turned traitor. And there's a guy in a black suit with a black tie, his hand over his heart, speaking into a microphone, called a stooge, poisoned by his new chef. The Daily Mail glorifies this type of war crime against civilians. Civilians whoever is in charge, they need to be able to live. They need to be able to earn money. They need to just go, okay, they're in charge. Now I need to carry on. It's a bit like saying in the Second World War, if you've ever watched Hello, Hello, the sitcom, where people had to get on with their lives. And then as they undertook secretive activity on an evening or with people that turned up with little bits of information, they would also deal with that because they were known not to be collaborators, but in order to just continue their lives and to have access to information, they had to look like they were just continuing their lives, which included serving Germans in pubs, being a waiter or a waitress or a barman or a bar lady or a manager of it. This is absolutely sick, and the Daily Mail is glorifying it. So is The Guardian. Same day, at least 18 people working for occupiers targeted in attacks. Again, this was another article where the reporter, the journalist reporting on this, totally glorified all of this stuff. These people targeted in attacks included teachers. These are civilians. They have gone door to door looking for civilians to target them and to either kill them, torture them, possibly rape them. I don't know. I don't know about the rape. I do know about the torturing and the killing. And the previous thing basically said one of them was in prison. This chicken farm guard ended up in prison. Maybe because he just carried on working and wasn't saying anything to the Russians, but because he carried on working, he's in prison. If he hadn't carried on working, he'd be dead because he'd have starved. Here's an extra element of Daily Mail Online about the first bit. We're hunting them down and shooting them like pigs. It's got the 4 people in the corners. Ukrainians take revenge. Look at the middle picture. That middle picture is actually a screenshot taken from a video. The people on the ground are Russian prisoners of war. Their faces are pressed up against the ground. But that screenshot really does look like a copycat of a small place just north of Kiev from back in March, doesn't it just? But if you look just on the left of the picture, you'll see a cartoon of a head with a helmet on with a Z on it. There is a big long knife slicing through the helmet into the guy's forehead and coming down and out through his neck. Somebody's put that in. Somebody is sick as fuck at the Daily Mail. These are the type of people that are indoctrinating others in the UK into hate for a conflict that we have no business to be involved in. We helped cause it ever since 2008. We've helped make sure that Russia has been kept down, not allowed to challenge the hegemony of the United States, not allowed to gain independence and strength. So Russia have just got on with it and gained their independence and strength. And now they're reaping the benefits, huge benefits, for themselves in financial terms. And the only people that are against them seem to be the NATO countries. That is it. Everywhere else, Africa, South America, Asia, they're all alongside Russia. Middle East, it's all alongside Russia. They're certainly not alongside America or the UK or France or Germany. Certainly not with the Baltic Chihuahua countries. Now this guy's interesting. This guy is called Zorin. He's an Azov Nazi. And you'll see in the next picture why I'm calling him that. You can see the wolf's angle on his chest there. The Azov emblem, which comes straight from Nazi Germany. And he looks a bit like a cowboy here, or somebody straight out of the Wild West with his hat on. But he has posted... I'm going to give you a warning at the moment. The next picture is pretty horrific, and it is a screenshot that has come from a video that he posted. And he posted the video this morning, 9th of October. And he originally posted it in a Telegram channel, and I've got a copy of it. And then, after he realised that he'd completely screwed up, he then changed it. So the video shows, if you look at the red arrows up at the top, that is two people up at the top that have just thrown a guy who's already dead down a hill into a ready-made mass grave. This is today, 9th of October. There are at least 5 other people in this mass grave. We think at least one of them moves during the 6-second video, suggesting that maybe they're not all dead, but they soon will be, or they will be by now, because they'll have filled in this mass grave. And what's going on here is that this guy is glorifying the fact that he's out there in Kapyinski, is it? It's Kharkiv area. Let me just see. It's Kupyansk of Kharkov. So he put this up basically saying this is what we do to these people, to these collaborators. Links in with the Daily Mail and the Guardian. I've removed their faces or their heads. And you see the guy being thrown, tossed down, and ends up in the grave, the mass grave. Now, there's been lots of talk about mass graves, and the only mass graves that are actually war crime mass graves are known to have been done by the Ukrainians. And this is one of the examples. And what did he do? As soon as he'd done it, he basically then said, oh, this is taken from a collaborator's phone or a prisoner of war's phone from before we actually took over this area. Interestingly, if you look at the metadata of this video that he posted, because he did not remove the metadata, he actually took the video at 11:24 Ukrainian time AM this morning in Kupiansk, Kharkov. This video was taken this morning while Ukraine controls the whole area. These people, there's at least two of them, the person that's been thrown down and the person in the blue top. They have their hands bound, and the person that's been thrown down has got his feet bound. And it's not just men that are in there, it's women as well. There are suggestions that these are teachers from Kupiansk who carried on teaching children when Russia was controlling the area. This is war crimes, and this is evidence of war crimes. This idiot took it with his phone this morning and uploaded it within a couple of hours or within an hour, bragging about it. This war criminal scum. What was his name? Zorin. That's him. That's the guy. He put this on his Telegram saying he had taken the video. Then he changed it very, very quickly to say he had found the video on an occupier's phone. Not true. Look at the metadata on the left. If you get hold of the video and you're able to download it, you will see the metadata. It shows that the recording took place at 11:24 Ukrainian time this morning, Sunday the 9th of October, by the person doing this. He then uploaded the video to Telegram within a couple of hours. This is the scum that most people in the West are supporting. Azov Battalion, the heroes of Mariupol. The glorious, glorious celebrations when these Azov bastards were set free and ended up in Turkey in a prisoner swap exchange. Absolutely fucking horrific and absolute 100% pure evidence of war crime undertaken this morning. Mass graves, civilians being thrown into a mass grave. There is a video of this. It's available on Telegram, and it doesn't have the black blobs in it because I put those in case somebody was really concerned. And the interesting thing is, as the person falls down and hits the guy in the orange top, the head of one of the others in this mass grave moves as if he's scared. seems to be alive at the point that this video was taken.
Тому що у нас робота буде, у них немає. У нас пенсії будуть, у них немає. У нас піклування під дітей, під людей, під пенсіонерів, під дітей буде, у них немає. У нас діти підуть до школи, до дитячих садків, у них вони будуть сидіти в підвалах. Бо вони нічого не вміють робити. І так, і саме так ми виграємо цю війну.
І так, і саме так. That is Petro Poroshenko. That was in late 2014, giving a conference speech. I think it might have been somewhere down in Odessa. This was after the Minsk agreements had been signed by Petro Poroshenko. Him. Petro Poroshenko signed those agreements with France and Germany as the mediators and the guarantors of the Minsk agreements. He signed those agreements with Putin. And he had no intention whatsoever of maintaining that ceasefire and keeping with that agreement. This guy is a terrorist. This guy decided instead of peace, he wanted to annihilate the people of Donbass. So he sent his troops in. He took away their money. He took away their healthcare. He took away their education. He took away their administrative services. He took away their pensions. He cut off the banks. And he shelled them with his Azov battalion and Aidar. Now, of course, the first troops that went there, they basically went in, put down their weapons and hugged everybody. They basically said, you are our people. We are the army that is here to protect you. We are not going to harm you. That lasted for a few months until people like Poroshenko basically got rid of those who were not prepared to kill their own civilians. Then we've had 8 years of terrorist operations by Western Ukraine, by the government of Ukraine, shelling the Donbass regions, making sure that they are poor, they don't have jobs. They run about and scurry from one place to the next in the hope of not getting a shell hitting them. And now, of course, it's worse. Now that these areas are basically held by Russia, they are Russia now, and they are much safer. Now that Ukraine has been given HIMARS missiles, they're just lobbing them in. Donetsk, Melitopol, all of these areas. They're just lobbing them in, chucking rockets and shells at civilians, innocent civilians. And he was the one that started it. And Zelensky came in on the basis that he was going to end it all. He was there for peace. And he's become worse than Poroshenko.
Не знаем, кто их командир.
Но это уже неправда.
Серьезно.
Это
Потому
неправда.
что командиры меняются. Нас ранило. И мы сейчас... У нас командир сержант.
Бери обеспечение. Сколько сейчас привели?
Понятия не имею.
Кто там остался?
Я имею в виду
не здесь, вот, где вы были, а вообще.
Вообще. Мы даже знать не знаем. Ну я не знаю, честно говорю. Вот на сердце ложу, я серьезно говорю. И...
This is a video, it's not subtitled. The 3 people that you see in the video here, sat down or lying down, they are Ukrainian soldiers who have been caught. They were unable to get away. And the Russians have caught them. And these are prisoners of war. They're just sitting there. One of them is lying down and getting treated. Totally treated. They are not bound up. They are not face down. They don't look like they are being shouted at in any way. They are chatting away to their, quote, captors, while one of them gets medical help. And there are many, many videos of this. This is exactly what Russia does. When somebody surrenders, they then get help. They remove their guns and anything that could be used. And they give them water, food. You can see a water bottle there. You can see things that are just open. These people are just sat there, just waiting to be sorted out, chatting away. And then they will go with the Russian soldiers to wherever, because they know they're now safe. All these videos that have come out about, oh, they did this to us and they did that to us in the prisons. I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe a word of it. This is how the people on the battlefield treat other soldiers when they surrender. This is how the Russians treat Ukrainian soldiers when they surrender. What I've shown you in this video is all about humanity versus inhumanity, and the only inhumanity that there is coming from one side. It's coming from Ukraine. I said I would talk about dehumanization. When people here in the West talk about Nazism, they go, Jews, Jews, Jews. It's just all about the Jews. And you can't say that Ukraine is Nazi because Zelensky is a Jew. Nazism is not just about Jews. Nazism has an underlying foundation that's all about dehumanization of the other, whoever the other is. For the Nazis, the true Nazis of Germany, it was the Jews, it was the Gypsies, it was the disabled, it was the Slavs. They were all dehumanized. If you weren't of true Aryan blood, you were less than the Aryans. That means you would never lead. You would never have the same rights. It's about removal of your human rights. So when you hear somebody talk about Russians as orcs, don't snigger, because that's just fascist dehumanization. If you listen to the NAFO idiots, now another fascist organisation is how I term them, NAFO. These are the people on Twitter or on wherever, Instagram, that go after anybody that isn't 100% completely in line with Ukrainian fascist requirements. If you talk to them, you will hear this stuff about dehumanization, the Russophobia. Anybody Russian must be dealt with. Anybody that is not completely pro-Ukrainian must be dealt with. Just because somebody is not pro-Ukrainian does not mean they are pro-Russian. I am completely independent in this fight. I am certainly not pro-Ukrainian. And I am really, really getting very close to being anti-Ukrainian. But this isn't my fight. And I should be able to look at this objectively and independently and receive information from both sides and be able to make my own determination. But for most people in Britain, in the West, all of the information from Russia is turned off. You can't see it. You don't get it. All you get is a bastardized version of it delivered to you by the anti-Russian haters from our media, from our governments, with people saying everything Putin and the Russians say is lies, lies, lies. And as soon as you hear that, you know you're being indoctrinated. There's only one side that is fighting against the same ideology that your and my grandfathers and great-grandfathers fought back in World War II. That same ideology, fascism and Nazism, the dehumanization stuff. There's only one side that is fighting against that and trying to get back to principles. And it's a long, tough road. And I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know whether they're going to do it. But if the West keeps on going the way that it's going, we might as well all be burnt with a swastika on our backs, running straight through us, through our bones, through our blood, through our hearts. Because these people do not realize they have become Nazis. They are supporting Nazism. They're supporting war crimes. They're supporting terrorism. And it has to be kicked out. We see things not as they are, but as we are. Projectionism. Fight against it.